okole ungilitasil sungilong YOUNGBLOOD merkiterogoy. Ekadamral merenga sulela oyal ngia korama amle spearhead tial togora media training el mlaringira one-stop shop or sel conference room ra obisa president makadamrenga sulela President Suran Woods Jr. Gukmlosab Ellodersi sel conference room. Swadel merengas tu sulel langgal proveso nga loader East West Center nga sel nga journalism program coordinator el klela Stephen YOUNGBLOOD. Engi amlel me mrura training ra tokora media tokora journalism. Emang swadel ngatiang shout out el mortige rogul sponsors mar donors. Century Hospitality and the Wyndham Garden Guam, United Airlines, University of Guam, Tumen Sands Plaza, Childs Grill and Bar, GFS Group, Subway Restaurant, Office of the President of Palau, Embassy of the United States of America in Palau, Palasia Hotel, Palau Media Council, Palau Ministry of State, Masural and Sons Company. Special thanks to our supporters, the Office of the Governor of Guam, the network of PIOs in Guam, the network of PAOs and public relations staff of Joint Region Marianas and Joint Task Force Micronesia, staff and journalists of Glimpse Media, Glimpse of Guam, Guam Daily Post, Guam News, Pacific Daily News, Pacific Island Times, at togubet sel mortigel adara United Airlines kadamrenga sulel ngel regional manager Paulal mlosob el May ngel marketing el ngarap kuk private sector tirang artial gora amle part tertial training direct gora asorin market tertial direct flight radalong lela Narita Mabelaw. Hindi kadamrenga sulel el Palasia Hotel el mlosob iluule eng mengal brobe song ratokora medial malmle eye opener mal luls dimle eli mel alsils betogar nganyar ngaskel journalist reporter nganyar betokol silu bradin eli mel al dimle tool sessions mal merenga sule la oyal ko korangi akoramle madadel goragut maklitya mang shout out tan mora oyal ma al organizer tiay del program mang akmul masa Steve YOUNGBLOOD malguk polo ay sa tetelela aurelela tokora peace journalism el ngia ko ramlam ali manswa del ngul masang malbolo ay sergit and din dia kipo mo lakols leng dio ko del bunga temed leng ay ngia ko kalborengi ma akmutial te alle kwelgamberengi. So good afternoon, Steve, and thank you for coming and sharing your views on media or journalism in the Pacific. And we thank you for a great training that you did for the last 2 days. So thank you and welcome to Palau. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here and to visit with you and your listeners on Palau Wave Radio. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit about myself first and then get into a little bit about the training. So I am, as you mentioned, the media programs coordinator at the East-West Center. We're based in Honolulu, Hawaii. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the East-West Center, we're an independent organization that is dedicated to building connections, to building bridges of understanding between and among the nations of the Pacific and Asia, including the United States. And we build these bridges a number of different ways. So we have several hundred students from throughout the region who come to Honolulu and study with the East-West Center and at the University of Hawaii. We have a number of professional development programs, leadership programs for youth. So one of the programs I'm involved with is called the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative, or YSEALI. So on this particular program, we bring a number of people, young people, ages 20 to 25. We bring them first to Honolulu, and so I've been working with them on storytelling and some related issues. My main focus is media programming. So we have all different sorts of media programming. The training that we've done this week in Palau and in Guam is one example. We have exchange programs like our Korea-U.S. Journalist Exchange Program. We have international programming. I'm in charge of a program called the Jefferson Fellowships. So we bring together a dozen journalists from the region who will study, report, and travel based on a theme. So every year the theme is different. This year the theme is food insecurity. So we'll start in Honolulu, then we'll go to Indonesia, and then end up in Thailand, all the while interviewing officials, making visits, hearing presentations about food security. So this week I've been, as I mentioned, in Guam and here talking about peace journalism, talking about disinformation and so on. And I've got to say the reception has been warm in both places, very welcoming. I've had a lot of interesting interactions with journalists, with public relations professionals, and as I implied, I think it's been time very well spent. I've enjoyed my time here, and the feedback I've gotten has been kind thus far.
So what can you share in journalism with our listeners and viewers on mainly on the disinformation, if you can educate our viewers and listeners?
So we talked a little bit about disinformation today, about what it is and how it impacts societies. So you've probably heard of disinformation and misinformation. So misinformation is incorrect information, but it's shared without the knowledge that it's bad information. It's not shared to cause harm. Disinformation is very deliberate. So it's deliberately shared to cause some sort of harm, to cause some sort of damage as propaganda and so on. So we talked today about the threats that disinformation poses to professionals in communication. Primarily that when there's bad information out there, it makes all of us in the information business look bad by association. Now, it's not necessarily fair, but I think it's the way that people think. And we talked, I think most importantly, about the need for media professionals to promote media literacy. The idea that media audiences need to be more sophisticated in the ways that they consume and evaluate media. So with media literacy, we're not going up to people and saying that information, that's wrong. We are saying, here's some tools you can use, some questions you can ask to analyze the material yourself, and using these questions to then make an informed decision about whether the information contained in a post or in a story is accurate and reliable.
Do you think, like, if there's misinformation or disinformation out there, how can we go about it in a positive way or a peaceful way that the person writing or discussing it on radio, on the air, or TV can be more professional, but in a way won't make someone angry or mad or disappointed, instead of like putting fuel into the fire to diffuse it and to be more not writing or discussing it with pure feelings?
I mean, I think that that's a really good question. And what I would say is, while we need to address it, there's no reason to make it personal. So there's no reason to attack someone personally because they hold those views. As much as you can, you want to help that person analyze these views and say, okay, you're telling me X, Y, Z. Let's take a look at that. Where did that information come from? And why do you think the person who put that information out there, why did they say that? What's their motive in putting that information out there? And that's really what media literacy is about. not telling people that they're wrong, but giving them the tools to reach that conclusion themselves. And it is threading the eye of the needle, to be sure, but I think it's incumbent upon us as media professionals to do that, to call out information in as polite and peaceful manner as possible, to call out that information that's inaccurate.
Do you think, let's say, if there's a posting, let's say something that I did, or someone wrote an article about me that is a misinformation or not accurate, do you think I should reply by rebutting what they said, or how should I go about it from your expertise? How should we go about it in addressing it?
So before I answer, what would you do? What do you think?
I wouldn't waste my time.
Okay.
Yeah, on that issue.
Right.
Because it's just like adding fuel into the fire.
See, that's it. Why get...
Not in the islands, not a lot of people would do that. They would they immediately react.
And it makes sense that people want to immediately react. But you heard me use the phrase several times today. Do you want to give oxygen to that information? So by reacting, and especially reacting angrily, all you're doing is giving oxygen to that, perpetuating that item in the news cycle. So rather than letting it die the death that it deserves, you've resurrected this information and you fueled an ongoing discussion about it, rather than, as you suggest, just letting it go. It's easy for me to say, let it go, because it's not me, but I would sure try to approach it that way. And if there was information that absolutely had to be corrected, what I would do is correct the information without discussing the initial criticism, the initial charge, and simply write something that rebuts that, but don't even mention the attacker. Don't mention what was said, just to set the record straight. But I think your approach is probably a very healthy one.
Yeah. Now, switching gears, going into, we notice a lot of people now are getting into TikTok, Instagram, blogs, social media, Snapchat. A lot of young reporters, young people who are just doing their podcast. If you can share, how can they increase their audience and viewers, and what does it take to... Is 30 seconds or 5 minutes can capture their attention? If you can share on that.
Yeah, well, I don't claim any special expertise on this. I'll just tell you what I did. So I have a moderately successful blog. I don't even know if you'd call it moderate. It's small by blog standards, between 5 and 10,000 readers a month. It's fine. And so that didn't happen overnight. So I've been doing this for, 15 years roughly. And it's just a slow process, for me anyway. It was a slow process of building an audience in conjunction with building social media connections that help me promote the blog. Now, I suppose that you could shortcut it and make it very sensational and make it very inflammatory, spice it up, but that's not my style. And that's not what the blog is about. The blog is about peace journalism. So it would be contradictory of me to have these hyped up social media posts that are promoting a blog that is about not hyping it up. So it was, for me, a slow build. To build my followers on Twitter. I know it's X, but I hate X, so I still call it Twitter. On Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and so on. And it's taken me a while to do it, and just to try to connect with the right people. So for me, It was an exercise in patience. And if you knew me, you'd know that patience is the quality, a quality that I possess in only very small quantities. So it's been hard waiting to build that audience. But it's finally where I think it's reached its peak. That this is just how many people are going to be interested in the subject matter. I think it's the right people. I hope that it is. But this is never something that's going to have hundreds of thousands of readers. Okay, it's not Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. It's peace journalism.
If you can stress more on the peace journalism, what is that? Why is it peace journalism?
Sure. So back in the 1960s, a colleague of mine, and I was privileged to know him, his name was Dr. Johan Galtung, and he was a Norwegian academic and peace study researcher. So in the 1960s, he looked around at the media environment and he didn't like what he saw. He saw sensationalism. He saw media that serves only the elites. He saw language that inflames, that polarizes, that angers. He saw warmongering. He saw peace and peacemakers marginalized. So he and his colleagues that looked around at the media environment and decided there had to be a better way. So they hatched this idea of peace journalism, which, as I say, has been around since the 1960s. So by definition, peace journalism is when editors and reporters make choices that can create an atmosphere conducive to peace. So what choices am I talking about? The words that we use. Are we using words that anger, that inflame, that sensationalize, or are we using more neutral language? How we frame our stories. So are we talking only to warmongers? Are we talking to those who are proponents of peace? And so during the workshop, I talked about peace journalism and gave some of the characteristics of peace journalism, including helping to lead discussions about solutions, including building bridges between conflicted people, conflicted societies, rather than us versus them. Think about how much traditional journalism is us versus them, right? Talked about the use of language, of responsibly using images. So is there ever a time that you would use a bloody image or an image of a traumatized child? We talked about considering the consequences of our reporting. So if I report this story in this way, what happens? So you heard me use the phrase over and over again, putting gasoline on the fire. So I think traditionally journalism does that all too often. We'll take a bad situation and make it worse. We'll put gasoline on the fire. Peace journalism seeks to do no harm. It's a little like a Hippocratic oath, right? That doctors take that says first do no harm. And so it would be an interesting and different media environment if journalists took that to heart. First, do no harm.
So when you talk about peace journalism, let's say if I was a writer or I write my blog, do you think, let's say if John Doe committed suicide, do you think I should put like a headline, John Doe committed suicide? Or in peace journalism, how should I title my headline?
So my first question to you would be, why do you choose to report about suicides?
Because let's say here in the islands, when something happens, immediately they say somebody committed suicide. So I wanted to share with our audience and viewers on how should we go about it and be considerate of families and people who are actually reading the content.
Right. And so I understand the question, but let me take a step back and say, why is it as a media outlet that you would even report about a suicide? Why report that it's suicide? If you must report the death, why report that it's suicide? What's the value in reporting that it's suicide?
Because the only reason why I ask is because that's what we read on the newspaper, rather than tailoring it in a more neutral way. So if we can share with our young reporters or listeners who are listening on how we can not only journalism, but into tailoring our conversations, instead of condemning, how can we say it in a neutral and positive way?
So I've taught peace journalism in 36 countries and territories. And one of the first things I've learned is I'm here to present ideas, to lead discussions, to get people to thinking. So I would never tell you what to do, what not to do. I would just tell you what I would do. And what I would do is never, ever report that someone committed suicide, period. It's okay to report the death, but I think that when you report that it's a suicide, that you're traumatizing the family. You're re-traumatizing the family. You're re-traumatizing friends and neighbors and entire schools sometimes. I personally don't see the value in reporting that it's a suicide.
Like you mentioned.
In a small community like this, people are going to know anyway.
Yes.
So simply report, so-and-so died, report the details about their life if you want to, where the funeral service is being held. I would never report that someone committed suicide.
Yes.
If the family comes forward and asks you to report that it was a suicide and wants to talk about suicide prevention, okay, I'm all for that. But otherwise, on my own, I would never report that it's a suicide. And one of our other participants said that today as well. That she said that her policy was never to report that it was a suicide.
And that's why I wanted to really share that with the community on how we can move forward as like you mentioned, we're such a small island population, that how we can turn something more in a positive and neutral way, rather than printing something like, suicide.
Consider the family.
Yeah.
If that was somebody in your family, would you want that in the paper or on the radio? I would.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. How can we engage the young reporters? Because we heard the young reporters at our workshop that after the mini games, it's like nothing now. So from your experience and your knowledge, what do you think we can do to engage our young reporters, and so they won't be discouraged? And how can, because of our culture, it's always the elderly. You have to respect the elders and listen to the elders, and normally the kids' opinion doesn't matter. If you can share and stress on that, on how we can move forward as a community.
Well, I've learned a great deal about Palauan culture this week, but I have so much more to learn. I will say this, that during our workshop, during our closing discussion, I thought some interesting ideas were brought up about how to accommodate and encourage young journalists. One of the ideas that I liked was for young journalists to form an organization within the Media Council where they could feel like they really belong, like their voices are heard. I think that's a terrific idea and a good start. I would say as well for the young journalists that this might be an area that would benefit from discussions between media houses, journalists, and newsmakers, and politicians and business people and leaders, because I think we know what the culture is, but I think for young journalists, we need to help everyone understand that this is really holding back. This makes, I know holding back is too strong, but it makes things more difficult for young journalists. That it's one thing in our social interactions, and of course, terrific that we're respecting and giving deference to our elders. But in terms of media, to help people understand that these young people have to be, to do their jobs, have to be a little more assertive than they might be in other situations and other settings. And that this is not a sign of disrespect. It's simply a requirement of the job.
And I also like the thought, Mr. Steve, that when we were at the end discussion, we were discussing on how we can move forward after this workshop and coordinate from like a public-private partnership from like the Congress, the executive branch, the private sector on disseminating information from public relation or public information officer with the media team on the government, public and private sector. What do you think of that?
Well, I like the fact that media people and PR public affairs people are proactively meeting with one another, working with one another. Of course, both sides understand that we've got a job to do. And sometimes what we as journalists is not going to sit well with our PR friends. And sometimes what our PR friends do is not going to sit well with us as journalists. So I think I wouldn't call it an adversarial relationship necessarily. It's certainly a symbiotic one. And I think the more that we understand, we as journalists understand the work that PR people do, and the more that PR people understand the work that journalists do, the better, while understanding there's a difference between the two. So it was interesting for me this week that we met as a group, journalists and PR public affairs people together, because I think there are too few opportunities for us to be in that room together and hear each other's perspectives. So I thought that was valuable.
I think this is the first time where it actually everybody came to the table and were able to discuss, because at the end of the day, we all face, whether you're PR or, from the media or journalists, we share the same issues, but only to get that information to be transparent and accurate is important. So my next question is from 1970s or 1960s until now. How do you see the media and or journalism now?
Well, that's an entire course in journalism that I could give. So I'll try to give you the really brief version of this. I think the biggest earthquake that's shaken the profession is the loss of the economic foundation of media and the shift of advertising dollars away from traditional media, especially newspapers. And so what this has done is to undermine the very profession of journalism. So in media houses everywhere that I've been, from sub-Saharan Africa to the Middle East, to to Guam, to the United States, everywhere I've been, you're looking at newsrooms that look a lot different than they did 30 years ago. So you have newspapers operating with half as many people. You have television stations operating with reduced staff. You have journalists who used to be specialized, who are operating now as what we would call a one-man band. So it used to be that a reporter reported. Well, now a reporter is a reporter, a photographer, a videographer, a video editor, an audio editor, a web editor. You get the idea. And so the profession has changed in that way too.
What do you think of AI playing its role in journalism?
Wow, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? The answer is, I don't know. The answer is, I'm concerned, even though I don't know much. I'm concerned that some nearsighted media owners might look at AI and think, well, that's a way that I can get some work done and get it done really cheaply. So I wonder if in 5 years and 10 years, these media house owners will look at their media outlet and say, well, I don't need 10 reporters, I just need 5. So I'll use 5 reporters and then supplement with AI. And I'm afraid you're going to see this in a lot of professions, but I am worried for our profession. I think AI has the potential of being a useful tool for us, but I don't know if the danger doesn't exceed the potential. We'll see, and I hope I'm wrong.
We're sort of wrapping up. If you can share your experience when you did a workshop or training with Pakistan and the Indians, I would love to share that story that you shared at the workshop. And then and last closing, share how if there's a young a generation listening, how can they, if they do enroll at UH Manoa, can they also, is there a program that they can sign up through East West Center if they're interested in journalism? And then you can do your closing and we'll wrap up.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, since 2015, the East West Center has sponsored, promoted something called cross-border journalism. And I've been privileged enough to take part as a trainer in the last 2 of these sessions. So what we've done is gathered Indian journalists and Pakistani journalists. We've trained them first on Zoom and then in person. So we've gathered, for the last 2 groups, we've gathered in Nepal and held a series of trainings. My segment of the trainings was on peace journalism. And so at the end of this workshop, we would pair up the journalists, 1 Indian and 1 Pakistani. And they would each then form a reporting team that would jointly report on issues of importance in the region. So they would, a lot of these reports were about the environment. So they would report about environmental issues in India and how the same issue affects Pakistan. Drought, for example, how drought is affecting agriculture in India, agriculture in Pakistan. It could be about other issues, economic issues, about small business problems in Pakistan, small business problems in India. It could be about women's issues. It could be about healthcare. So these stories were about everything. And what the journalists discovered was that they had much more in common than anything that separated them, that the challenges faced by their societies are virtually identical. And the stories that they produced, we hope, resonated in their communities. So imagine being an Indian and never hearing a Pakistani perspective. Well, suddenly you've got news in front of you that has that Pakistani perspective. And the same thing in Pakistan, that you've never read an Indian perspective. Well, there it is in this story. And I think that the more people know that they have common struggles, common issues, and maybe common solutions, that this can then lay a foundation for peace. So I'm very, as I think I mentioned in the seminar, of all the work that I've done professionally, I think I may be most proud of my participation in these cross-border programs. I think they've been of tremendous value and tremendous impact. So in terms of journalism programs for young people, I mean, I encourage you to start your work in the media as early as you can. Start writing, start publishing, get your name out there, but do it in a responsible way. As far as education is concerned, if you go to eastwestcenter.org, You can learn a lot more about the educational opportunities that we offer through the University of Hawaii Manoa, as well as other programs that we have for young people or for professional journalists, exchange programs, and so on.
Hopefully you can coordinate with President of Palau Community College, Patrick Delay, and maybe do like online courses or exchange programs. I think that would be great because we have a lot of young reporters now who want to further their education in journalism. That would be great.
That would be very interesting. I before I left Guam, I met with the president of the University of Guam, and certainly we're planning those sorts of things as well.
Yes, and you're speaking about cross-border training, and as I mentioned at our workshop, I hope that rather than our media council seems to be more on the South Pacific, I hope that we can do cross-border and exchange information within the Micronesian region, like Guam, Saipan, FSM, Marshall Islands, Yap, and Palau. I think, and Saipan, CNMI. I think that would be great. So,
Me too.
yeah,
That's a terrific idea. And I'm thinking even broader than that, between Palau and Taiwan or Vietnam or Hawaii.
and China,
China.
Hawaii.
Yeah, China can pose some difficulties, but certainly these other places, because with these exchange programs, we've discovered the journalists really learn from one another.
Yes.
So I, as a trainer, I don't know that I should even call myself a trainer. I'm much more a facilitator, someone who's just getting the ball rolling. And as we saw today at the end of our workshop, it's once the ball starts rolling, then I think there's a great interest in forming these collaborations and in really growing and improving the profession.
Yes, and we also mentioned about the young professional entrepreneurs. I hope Palau, now we have a lot of young people who's gotten their masters, their BA, BS, PhD. Hopefully they can create a nonprofit for young professional entrepreneurs.
That's a terrific idea. Yeah. And you know, the East-West Center, as I mentioned, does a lot of different kinds of programming. Media programming is just one type. So we do have programs for entrepreneurs. We have leadership programs. So again, I'll encourage everyone to go to eastwestcenter.org and find out a lot more about the dozens of different programs that we have.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for all the sponsors, as I mentioned in the beginning of our program. And you can share your closing, and we'll wrap up.
My closing is, it's wonderful to be here, and I can't wait for my return trip.
Yes, us too. We're looking forward for you coming back.
Thank you very much.
I hope this won't be your last. It was a very eye-opener workshop, and I hope that there's young people who are able to listen and view this. Hopefully they can reach out to your website and maybe sign up or enroll. But thank you so much, Steve, and we hope to see you in the near future.
As we say in Hawaii, mahalo.
Mahalo. Makomal musulang almlo sa pamilyo panggeter el alsils happy Labor Day pomkarkik lenggora makitayang kada malmutan marang asulela galbro besong Stephen Youngblood alkuklo sa el me kuk share igel gora dige garepel inside sa ngira togora journalism nga kuk ngari alborngi mangora dimle kadeba programmer gid makomal musulang ya Dios lolmol lo makngal tanga tergi dero kuy mabalwat pelaw ko mal musulang.